My name is Reyes. I'm from South Chicago. I was born and bred in South Chicago on 9010 Brandon. I'm going to speak a little bit about my family history in regards to the United States Southworks Steel Mill. And my dad, my father, Simon Mesa Reyes, was a migrant from Mexico during the period when Mexico was going through very trauma with the revolution there. And my father, wasn't my father at the time, but he came here with a friend who eventually became my uncle. And what happened is that there was walk from the border of Mexico and Texas all the way up to Chicago. And I don't know how he did it, maybe with the train or walking or whatever. He was here. And there was a time that work was so important for everybody's livelihood, and him and a friend and a few other people were around 92nd Street Bridge, where it takes us from South Chicago to the east side. There was a gentleman there saying, "We're looking for people to work." And I just want to say that even though it's back to 1990, these are the stories that my brothers have told me since my dad passed away in 1963, and they consoled me because of his death. I needed something, and they told me the history of my dad, and this is what I'm going to share with you. Well, on that day, there was a man that was looking for workers to go work at U.S. Steel Southworks. And my brother said that there was a barge that came from to land near the bridge and asked for these workers. And of course, these men were destitute. They didn't have anything, food, money, clothes. They jumped in and they went to the mill. They couldn't go through the front door because at the time there was a disagreement with the workers of the steel mill in regards, and I want to say it's a strike. There were primarily Croatians, Polish, Irish, that were all arguing about working less time, working 8 hours instead of 12. But that was the issue there, and that's why they asked for these workers to come in, and they didn't care as long as they got paid for doing their work, and that was to shovel coal into the open hearts to make steel. And my brothers told me that my dad jumped on there and all the friends, and at the time, most of the people that did this were all the Mexican Americans that had migrated from Mexico and Texas to north to Chicago, and also the Black Americans. And basically that was the criteria for the people that really went to the steel mill to work. I don't want to say that it was racism or anything, but they figured they needed labor, and these guys were the appropriate people to do the labor work, and they did, and that's my father. And he worked there for 40 years. He passed away in November of 1963, but we don't know exactly when he was born. He was 65 when he passed. Either he was born in 1899 or 1898, but we never could get the birth certificate. But what I've learned from my brothers and my father was hard work, and I tried to do that because when my father was gone, I was 11, and my brothers were basically my lead and role models, and were hard work, working at the steel mill, making sure you have enough sleep, making sure that you can work 8 hours and do it and make the steel that this country needed to make all its buildings, all its tanks, everything that was steel. They spent their life doing that, and they all retired. My brother David, my brother Joe, my brother Carmen, my brother Danny, my brother Saul, my sister Petra, and my sister Martha all worked at the steel mill. As soon as they all turned 16, one at a time, at Bowen High School, which is on 89th and Muskegon, my dad went to the school and took them out of school at 16 and took them to U.S. Steel Southworks to work. And they did until they retired. It was great that they retired because during the era of 1990-91, downhill was U.S. Steel, and all we talked about later on at gatherings, at funerals or weddings, or we talked about how great it was to work there, and everybody in South Chicago was very happy. And I was told once that back in the 50s, one of the best neighborhoods to live was South Chicago because everybody was working. At one time, I was told there were 20,000 workers at U.S. Steel, and a lot of them were from South Chicago. And just the idea of working hard, I've spent my entire life in South Chicago, and I have a degree in PE and recreation. I like to consider myself as a youth advocate. I work with young people because there was a lot of people that worked with me to make sure I was doing it the right way. Not only from my family, but I was a YMCA boy, and they had rules and regulations and discipline. And discipline is what I always thought as young people today and young people in the past is something that they did not have. And I tried to play the work as a leader to them and teaching them, like some of the famous people in the world, General Patton, if you want to be a leader, you better learn how to follow before you can lead. And I worked with a lot of young people who were homeless, who were not able to read or write, and but wanted to try, and I did my best to find things for them. Mexican Community Committee was a community center that had workers that helped young people in trouble, and we worked with them. I worked with the juvenile court system, 1100 in Hamilton, and I would receive referrals for first-time offenders, and our goal there was to prevent them from being a felon. But a first-time offender was one who walked on your grass, threw your garbage on the ground. Wasn't really a felony, but our goal was to give them something to do and give them instruction and have them turn out the way you would want your children to turn out. And I can say right now, I belong to a group called La Causa Community Committee, and 3 of the board members are kids that grew up in our program who have master's degrees and have great jobs, families, and they asked me when I told someone else what I'm telling you is, why are you still here? It's because I want to give back to the community that I grew up in because someone helped me when I was growing up, and they gave me the guidance and the advice and the support that I needed to become what I am today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very nice.